Shalom, the grace and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. This is the homily for the 28th Sunday in the Ordinary Time. The theme, how does God want us to thank Him? Based on the first reading, second book of Kings chapter 5 and the Gospel reading Luke chapter 17 verse 11 to 19. I'm going to talk to you initially about a mysterious person called Naaman or Naaman. In fact, the second book of Kings dedicates the entire chapter 5, to this particular person. Even Jesus talks about him in the Gospel of Luke chapter 4. Let's see who this person is. Naaman was the army commander of the king of Aram, was highly esteemed and respected by his master, for through him the Lord had brought victory to Aram. But valiant as he was, the man was a leper. He suffered from leprosy. Probably he tried all the physicians living in Aram to give him some suggestion through the herbs to heal him. But he wasn't healed. So now he turned to a servant girl of his wife. So she was an Israeli. She says about Elisha, the prophet, who can heal him. So he gets a letter from his king and then goes to meet the king to be healed by Elisha, the prophet. Remember, he was a pagan. So he worshipped a god called Rimmon. It's a storm god. He would have prayed to this particular god, but nothing happened. But now, out of desperation, he listens to this servant girl, wife's servant girl. And then he goes to meet Elisha. Now Elisha says, or sends his messenger, secretary, Gehazi, and go and tell him to wash himself in the Jordan River 7 times. And Naaman gets angry. But his servants came up and reasoned with him, my father, if the prophet told you to do something extraordinary, would he not do it? Guess what? He listens to the servants once again. He's a mysterious commander. Why? Because he listens to the slaves, which is not an ordinary thing they usually do, He listened to his servants. Something talks about, that says something special about this person. So in the Gospel of Luke chapter 4, Jesus says that the real miracle of Naaman was not leprosy, was his conversion. That is why Elisha the prophet doesn't accept his reward. He wants to reward Elisha for the healing. But Elisha says, no, you already gifted me. You already rewarded me. By how? By accepting that the God of Israel is the only true God. So that itself, your conversion is my gift. And therefore, I don't want any more rewards. So that is why he refuses to receive. And afterwards, something special, something important takes place. Second book of Kings, chapter 5, verse 17. Let me read out to you. This is really strange and very important for us Catholic to understand because it is connected to Eucharist. Naaman said, if you will not accept, please let me, your servant, remember, your servant, now he considers himself a slave to Prophet Elisha, have 2 mule loads of earth. For your servant will no longer make burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other god except the Lord. He says, I'm not going to worship any other god, but I'm going to worship only Yahweh. But how? But offering burnt offerings, sacrifices on the soil, on the altar, which will be made by the soil. And Elisha permits this. So what is happening here? Elisha permits this Naaman to worship the one true God through the sacrifice. Oh, something important is revealed here. It is actually a definition of worship. People nowadays singing songs or praying to God, they call it worship, but it's not. Biblically, the definition of worship is the word that they used is ishtahawa. Ishtahawa. This is the word they used for worship. This ishtahawa is not bowing down. Some people blame Catholics that we worship Blessed Mother when we bow down. So bowing down is not worship. Offering sacrifice to a God is worship. Here the only true God. Remember, the Israelites, when they were gathered in Mount Sinai, what did they do? They offered sacrifice to the golden calf, and God cursed them. So, Ishtahwa involves sacrifice. Genesis chapter 22 verse 5, we read something very, very important. It's called Akada. Abraham tries to sacrifice his only son Isaac to God. So let me read out to you this verse. Abraham said to his servant, "Stay here with the donkey while the boy and I go on over there." Where is Mount Moriah? "We will worship and then come back to you." We will worship whom? The only true God. By how? Abraham's intention was to sacrifice his only son Isaac. This is the first time the very word worship was used in its fullest sense, the binding of Isaac. Do you know what happened? God did not let be Isaac sacrificed. He said, don't worry, the God will provide. That is why it's called Jerusalem, Yireh. God will provide. God will provide the lamb, the only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. In other words, my dear brothers and sisters, we can worship God only through Jesus' sacrifice. And that sacrifice takes place only in the Eucharist, in the Mass. Let me come to that later. So now we see Naaman wants to worship God through sacrificing animal. Naaman asked for the earth from the land God gave Israel in order to make a clean offering to Yahweh and not a profane offering on pagan soil. Elisha agrees, since Naaman is not a member of Sinai covenant, and therefore the laws of the covenant do not apply to him concerning only offering sacrifice at the altar of the Jerusalem temple. Elisha even accepts his confession, and he must accompany his king into a pagan temple. So, my dear brothers and sisters, that is why God gave the third commandment through Moses. Remember to keep holy the Lord's day. That is the best way to express your gratitude. You know, Naaman wanted to thank God. But how he wanted to thank God is by worshipping Him. My dear brothers and sisters, gratitude to God goes along with worshipping. The worshipping. You cannot thank God at home. You have to thank God by worshipping Him in the temple, in the Jerusalem temple. At the time, now, in the church, through the sacrifice of His only Son, Jesus Christ. So, God wants us to be grateful. Yes, how He wants to show our gratitude is by worshipping Him in the Sunday liturgy, in the Eucharistic sacrifice. You know, the gospel reading today, we see the 10 men with leprosy. Now, they came, and only one person comes, and he fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked Him. Thanked Him. And Jesus calls him a foreigner. Interesting. He was a Samaritan, but He still calls him a foreigner. Why? Because they don't belong to the Sinai covenant. And therefore, he's not obliged to thank God through the sacrifice of animals. So he can come to Him by worshipping Him, Jesus. He is also admitting that it is right for you to thank me, because only through me you can thank God. And that is why, my dear brothers and sisters, Luke uses the word thank as Eucharistein, the same exact word he uses in the establishment of the Eucharist on the Last Supper. Luke chapter 22 verse 19. Not just Luke, even Mark and Matthew as well, as they use the same Greek word Eucharistein. No, it is ironical, because it is a man who is not of the covenant who returns in gratitude to give thanks to God, and the Jewish lepers did not. It is a sign of future events concerning Jesus and the Jews, how Jews will reject and the Gentiles will accept Jesus. So, in other words, my dear brothers and sisters, if you really want to thank God, you have only one way. It is through Jesus, His sacrifice that takes place in the Sunday Eucharistic celebration. So, that is why Jesus says in the Last Supper, do this in memory of me. Remember, because memory, that is remembering, is connected with gratitude. We all live in a rushing world. We go faster. We don't remember things. That is why so many of us are not grateful to our own brothers and sisters or parents who have done so much, because we don't have time to stop and then think and remember the good things that they have done. Most of the times we don't thank them. Why? Because we don't remember what they have done. That is why Jesus says, do this in memory of me, in remembrance of me. Gratitude is connected with remembrance. I recently read an article. It's actually called The Science of Gratitude, published by Summer Allen, PhD. There is one particular section called Individual Benefits of Gratitude. If you are grateful, how much of benefits you get it. Research suggests that gratitude may be associated with many benefits for individuals, including better physical and psychological health, increased happiness and life satisfaction, decreased materialism, and more. A handful of studies suggest that more grateful people may be healthier, and others suggest that scientifically designed practices to increase gratitude can also improve people's health and encourage them to adopt their healthier habits. Many more studies have examined possible connections between gratitude and various elements of psychological well-being. In general, more grateful people are happier, more satisfied with their lives, less materialistic, and less likely to suffer from burnout. Additionally, some studies have found that gratitude practices like keeping a gratitude journal or writing a letter of gratitude can increase people's happiness and overall positive mood. Gratitude may also benefit people with various medical and psychological challenges. For example, one study found that more grateful cardiac patients reported better sleep, less fatigue, and lower levels of cellular inflammation. And another found that heart failure patients who kept a gratitude journal for 8 weeks were more grateful and had reduced signs of inflammation afterwards. Several studies have found that more grateful people experience less depression and are more resilient following traumatic events. Other studies suggest that gratitude may live up to its reputation as the mother of all virtues by encouraging the development of other virtues such as patience, humility, and wisdom. In recent years, studies have examined gratitude's potential benefits for children and adolescents. For example, studies have found that more grateful adolescents are more interested and satisfied with their school lives, are more kind and helpful, and are more socially integrated. A few studies have found that gratitude journaling in the classroom can improve students' mood, and that a curriculum designed to help students appreciate the benefits that they have gained from others can successfully teach children to think more gratefully and to exhibit more grateful behavior, such as writing more thank you notes to their school. So, my dear brothers and sisters, if we are thankful to God, it benefits us more than Him. Some people may ask this question, what is gratitude? Gratitude is an other-oriented virtue. It can be called a moral sentiment, a motive, a coping response, a skill, or an attitude, or a virtue, or even an emotion. But according to some studies, it says that gratitude arises when you realize that something valuable, precious, is freely given to you. Life is something valuable and it is freely given to us. Have you ever thanked God for this life? Gratitude arises in realization that something very precious is freely given to us. And that is why Cicero says that the gratitude is the mother of all other virtues, and it is the greatest virtue. David Steindl Rast, a Benedictine monk, he was famous for his TED talk. He says, it is not happiness that makes you grateful, it is gratefulness that makes you happy. If you really want to be happy, we all want to be happy, start being grateful. Thank God for all the blessings that you have received, all the things that you have received. We are in a rushing world, instantaneous world. He says, a simple way to develop this gratitude. It's like crossing the road. What we do when we cross a road, we stop, we look, and then go. Apply this in your life. Stop, look, and then go. Your life will be really, really happy. And remember, the best way to express our gratitude to God is by offering participating in the Eucharistic liturgy. Amen.